able to come back from an incident or from an impact in Japan that they can do it in Europe. That's the only reason. So then they just jump from one release train to another, and as soon as everything is done and nothing has been broken, then they have the dedicated government clouds, which is kind of private clouds for specific companies. So they kind of try to avoid the measure of users impacted to this release train, and what they try to do is observe what is going to happen in one of those regions and in one of those trains. So this could not be done at the same time. Just imagine if Microsoft just released everything across the worldwide and something goes wrong. It would be the whole service down, so they could not recover from the disaster. That's why they have the release train, and that's why this is the logic behind that. So they use it based on the disaster recovery processes that they have in place. And then they try to expose as minimum as possible the end users. Okay, so based on the architecture that I mentioned, and based on what is behind Dynamics, we, as an architects, we have a responsibility. Use those resources as best as possible and use it as more effective as possible. Otherwise, this is impacting Microsoft, and impacting Microsoft means impacting our end customer. Because if we are overloading the platform, we are not only providing to our customer low performance on the service, but we are also importing the same low performance issues to the whole Microsoft cloud. So there is a two-way responsibility that we have to be aware of. So which are the key architectural principles that Microsoft is using and we should follow as well as architects? Design for business requirements. So design for something that must be reliable with some limits and focus on the requirements that the customer has, not on something that we will lack that the platform could have. Because if we start focusing on the future, we will just start consuming resources that are not necessary right now. So be sure that there are some limits, some quotas. It's not. It's often that it's not something critical, or it is something that maybe it's easy to handle, but you should be aware of. Even the database has some limits. The API has some limits. If you start just designing anything what you want without considering where you are designing this system in, you might be reaching the limits and the quotas for the system. So be aware of that. Then we design for resilience. So basically, you have to be sure that what happens if the system is if a part of the system goes down. We have something called critical path. Do you know what a critical path is? So you ensure the critical processes of the customer will continue working no matter what happens with the platform. So detecting those critical paths and ensuring that the system is efficient and it's been designed to ensure that if there is a reduced service within the platform, those processes will still continue working. That's design for resilience. Then we have design for recovery. So what happens? Could happen, obviously, if the Microsoft system goes down, and we have to ensure that as soon as Microsoft shuts on the system, everything is recovered and everything is set up correctly. It's something that sometimes might happen, that it's been detected the shutdown of the services of Microsoft, and as soon as Microsoft shuts on everything, because you didn't design a recovery plan and you didn't design how the processes will get up again, will ensure that everything is shutting on again and it's working again, because you haven't designed the recovery plan, you might end up with a platform that it's definitely not working. I mean, Microsoft fixed it their side, but you didn't design the solution on top of the SaaS based on the fact that could be done. And then design for operations, so testing. Basically, ensure that you're testing everything. Ensure that you have a test environment, ensure that every possible failure could be tested, and ensure that the life cycle of your application will not impact anything based on the performance of the system. But most important, keep it simple. I have seen castles built on top of Dynamics just because we can. Okay, you can, but you should not. Because you should be aware of that the resources behind Dynamics is affecting your customer. I have seen solutions going into production that at the very single moment that the customer tries to access the solution doesn't work. Performance limits, you reach the performance limits, the system even doesn't load, the data cannot be stored because the database is not working, because you create thousands of customer processes that are blocking the system to be or to work properly. So again, do not buy castles, keep it simple. Microsoft has a really, how to call it, reliable solution or an effective solution. You should follow the same principles and try to reduce your customizations and your developments on top as much as possible. And also use only those resources that you might think are necessary. Do not build up complex solutions, just keep it simple. It sounds stupid, but that's my message every time. Keep it simple. Okay, so last but not least, how we ensure that all of this amazing platform is secure. So we have 4 layers of security. The 4 layers are coming from the top to the bottom to ensuring that if you don't pass one of the layers, you cannot access to the bottom. And also we have cross-tenants, because as I mentioned, this security should work as well if you're working with multiple tenants. So you have multiple SMEs or even multiple departments where are in different tenants, which is even more complicated to build up, but it's possible. So we have the tenant level, if you're familiar with Azure Entry ID, so that's your first layer of security. Then we have the environment level. If you remember the tenant, then we have each subscription, and each subscription has their own tenants. So based on the environment, you can decide who can access, who can modify, who can read, who cannot, which applications, which service accounts, so everything can be managed at the environment level. Then we have resource level. Can the user A access to marketing? Can the user A access to sales? Not. But the user B can access to sales. Okay, can my developers access to Power Apps? Yes. Can my users access to an app developed with Power Apps? Yes, but they cannot create their own Power Apps. That's the security based on the resource. And then we have obviously Dataverse, so how they can access the information. Dataverse has at the same time 4 layers of security. So we have the business unit, we have the role, we have the teams, and last but not least, we have the item access level. So those 4 are into Dataverse. So just imagine how many things you have to take into account to ensure, as part of the recovery plan, if something goes off, you can go on as soon as the system and the service is available again. So, I'm trying to not extend myself a lot. There is a lot of things to explain, so I'm just trying to keep it as short as possible. But can Dynamics be extended and either integrated? Of course, as I mentioned. So we have many ways to extend the Dataverse extension using the same Azure extension layer that I have shown you before with all the logos and everything. We have many services that will help us to extend the capabilities of the Microsoft Business Solutions. And at the same time, within the Microsoft Business Solutions, so you don't have to jump into Azure subscriptions, you have many tools that you can use to custom and to configure the existing processes and tailor them into the customer processes. And last but not least, jumping into more depth or technical approaches. So these are the integration options that we have available within enterprise apps and within the Microsoft Business apps. We have the data model services through the enterprise service bus. We have through the business logic, so we can use logic apps, custom plugins. We can use obviously the SDK if you're familiar with the development. We can use the user interface. You can use the JavaScript. You can build your own PCP, which has a Power Apps component framework. You can use specific interface plugins to ensure that there is integrations. For example, every time that the user accesses to the platform, it should have a call directly made to a service to check out, I don't know, if this user has a available account or whatever in another service. I don't know. But this is like the third layer based on Dynamics. And last but not least, we have the low code. So based everything on the multi-factor and the entry ID, we ensure that the system can be integrated in a secure way, so to ensure that we can enrich the existing system with other systems worldwide, not necessarily specific Microsoft products, and also that the cross-application is possible. How we ensure the cross-application, and I'm just finishing. So this is just an example how Dataverse is communicating with an external ERP that was not Microsoft, neither Salesforce. So we had an external ERP, and what we were doing is we had our CRM and customer service processes on CRM. So what we had is Dataverse connected with a data factory. This data factory obviously had an Azure SQL in the background. We were just matching the data from ERP and from Dataverse into one single database, and using the Azure AP management, we were just plugging this information back to a Power Apps. This information was not back to Dataverse, because on Dataverse was our CRM information, not our information, not the information that we grab from the SQL database. Normal question, people ask me, why don't you connect the Azure SQL directly to the Power Apps? Because here on the Azure Functions, we were doing something else. We were just creating a specific CSV text, and we were just changing the format of the data. Last but not least, some of my colleagues here will recognize this diagram. We have a broad end-to-end enterprise Dynamics 365 implementation. So that was the pure everything on it. So what do you want? Everything. I want F&O, finance, operations, supply chain. I want customer service, I want customer insights, everything what you want. And if Microsoft releases something new, I want it as well. So we have to ensure all these processes are working under the same system and ensure the reliability of the process, but also the data. So ensuring that something needs to be modified in one side, it's been automatically populated and synced at the other side. Not an easy job. But last but not least, this information was also integrated with external data sources and external processes from third parties. So we had to ensure that these two systems were speaking correctly between each other, ensuring that at the same time the Azure integration layer was stable enough, and at the same time ensuring that all the data from here was reliable and trustable, because we were sending this information to an Azure data lake for almost real-time KPIs. So all of this, it's been done by an architect, ensuring and following the principles, well, many architects, but what I say is it's the architect's job to ensure that everything that you configure based on the Microsoft Business Solutions does not break the principle of scalability and also the availability. Ensuring that everything that you're deploying to the customer is scalable, not only based on this, based on the fact that this was duplicated in many environments, so dev, QA, test, state, pre-prod, and prod, but also the fact that in this scenario we had worldwide systems. So every country had their own implementation of this. So that's the fact. A scale set solution is following the same principles as Microsoft. So, thank you. I know it's been a lot of information, so when they asked me to do such a speak about about that, it was like, okay, let me see how I can condense everything and put it together, because there is a lot of things to talk about. I don't know if you have any question. If you could not follow me, that's fine. That's fine. Let me tell you, it's fine. But at least if you just step out today from here, just learning a lot or a bit more about the Azure SaaS, I will be happy.